Innovation. In the beginning, the earth was formless and void. And God said, let there be. And there was. Entrepreneurship. I stare into a blank screen that's empty and void, and I say, let there be. And there's something new that was never there before. And this, my friends, is our greatest act of worship. When we follow in the image of God and we stare into nothing and we call out of it something that was never there before, we give great honor to God and say, we want to be like you. We want to follow your image of being creators. So entrepreneurship, innovation, seeing a need and addressing that need and creating a solution that never existed before is one of the greatest things we can do. My vision, because every entrepreneurship, every innovation begins with a spark, an idea. I wish there was, and I wish there was an internet where everyone could be free to share without harassment or abuse. I dream of an internet where my daughter can upload the picture of herself in a prom dress and say, what do you think? And that would be safe to do without fear of abuse. I dream of a place where my son can put on his headset, play his favorite video game, and he can connect to other players. He doesn't have to worry about all the bullying and toxicity and hate that he's going to experience. How do we create this kind of internet? God brings us on journeys. And I use the word journey very deliberately because there's different steps that we go along and God just guides our path. If our heart is willing, he guides our path into different opportunities. And I'm going to unravel some of the opportunities that I've had as I walk with God in making various different companies. To see this goal, the first thing we had to do is we had to make the internet social. And so there was a movement that happened where originally the internet was just an information highway, a place to get information, but we had to make it more of a road trip where it's a place where you hang out with other people while you consume that information and take in the views and enjoy it. So the first thing that happened is we started off and I was building this online education system. I built a company and it was called the Online Learning System, really creative title. And I was going around, I just started going to different universities to talk to them about buying my software. The first university I went to was Trinity Western University. And I had the opportunity to meet Dr. Phil Laird. And Dr. Laird was in charge of building the early version of the online education for Trinity Western University. But Dr. Laird was very concerned because the experience at Trinity Western University was you're learning in community, because the community is incredibly important for your learning, because as iron sharpens iron, so one man, so one woman sharpens another. And what would happen if you just had an online education without the connection to the people who are going to help shape who you truly are? He wanted to explore the question of what would it take to build an online community. He asked me if I'd be willing to abandon my current project. We began to build an online community. Now, back in those days, the online community, the idea of online community was MySpace. And so you could write on MySpace your own blog entries, your journal entries of what's happening in your life and your photos, but you had to log in every day to see, did my friend post anything new? And we thought, what if you could take that concept and you could say, could you take all my friends, my alumni, my sports group, all those kinds of things, and I could subscribe to them, and then it would give me a stream, a social stream of everything new that everyone has said without having to log into each of their pages. And so we built this. And we brought it out to the student body and it got some interest from the students. And then we went over to different conferences around the world and we started speaking to other universities about it. And they said, we would like to have this too. And we're like, well, okay. Problem was, Trinity Western University at the time was not set up to commercialize something. Also, we didn't know exactly what we had because it was a year later. So 1 year later, this other guy named Mark Zuckerberg came out with this idea of basically the same thing, of a social stream of ideas. And he carried that idea. We didn't actually know how powerful a thing it was that we had. Ideas are easy to have. Execution is the hard part. The idea is like, I'm going to climb a mountain. The actual effort of climbing the mountain far exceeds the thought of climbing a mountain, because it takes an incredible act of the will to be able to get it from just an idea to executing it to the size of an idea, the size of Facebook. not everything works out. You just got to let it go. And you got to embrace the journey that God has given you. Okay, so let's talk about the next step of the journey. So the next one's really interesting as well. So my brother had been working on this idea, very interesting idea. It was a game, and it was a snowball fight between polar bears and penguins and a bunch of other animals, and they would throw snowballs at each other. It was a turn-based thing, and the gaming back in 1999, 2000 wasn't too popular. So he's doing an experiment. Could I make this work in Flash? Could the Flash platform make it work instead of just being like a banner ad across the top? Could you actually turn it into a game? And so he did an experiment. When you're going to go do a new idea, break it down to its smallest. Don't build the entire snowball fight. The simplest thing to do is to draw a penguin, because a penguin's basically just a triangle, and the animation just waddle the penguin like this. Really, really simple animation. So what's the simplest thing you could do just to prove that it works? And then for a background, the simplest thing to draw is a sheet of ice. So a penguin walking across a sheet of ice. Could that work? And sure enough, it did. But before he knew it, he had thousands of users with their little penguin waddling around doing that. But they couldn't talk to each other. So the first thing that they were asking for is, we want chat, we want chat, we want chat, we want chat. Now, back in 2000 area, you don't want to add chat, especially for kids, because chat was such a dark place on the internet. It was full of harm and abuse, but they wanted chat. And one of the things to learn about startups is you got to listen to your audience. And so we built chat, and I remember, because we're so concerned about safety, people would say something that was wrong. They'd find a way to get around the filter. We would actually change the code in the back end, kick everyone off the server, reboot the server in real time. And we just iterated like that fast. And that's one thing you can do at the very beginning of your company, is you can iterate really, really fast. And you got to be pivot until you nail it. You got to nail it before you scale it, they say. We built this concept, and then it really took off. So he gave me a phone call. I was working over at my TWU, and he said, look, this thing's really taken off. I need your help. So he renamed it. He called it Club Penguin. It grew to hundreds of millions of kids. Pretty much every kid between the age of 8 and 12 was playing this thing. My brother sold the company to Disney for $300 and some odd million. So you got penguins walking around, talking to each other, but they also dressed themselves up with like shirts and funny outfits and hats and snorkels. They looked ridiculous. One penguin would say to another penguin, "Oh, you've got a nice shirt." Like, because they dress themselves up and it's kind of a rare item. It's like, wow, that's a nice shirt. Every now and again, they typed so fast, they forgot the letter R. And the SHIT without the R is a swear word in English. And our policy was that if you typed in a swear word, you'd be instantly kicked off the game and you can't come back for 24 hours. I'm walking past customer support. I'm listening to them on the phone. And this kid's crying on the other side of the phone. Little Johnny, I've been playing Club Penguin for 3 years. I've never done anything wrong. I would never do. I thought to myself, I said, maybe Johnny's right. Maybe instead of just using technology to find words that are bad, maybe we should pay attention to the reputation, because if Johnny really has played for 3 years with no problems, I could probably give him grace. I won't let it through the filter because I got to protect the other kids, but I don't have to ban Johnny for 24 hours. And interesting. Remember that problem where the kids at the very beginning were breaking the filter and we kept restarting the servers? What if I figured out which kids, because it's only a small number of kids that try to break the filter. If I figured out who they are and listen to everything that they said, I could learn all the new trends of how people try to break the filter. So I set out to build another company. The company is called Two Hat Security. Eventually that became One Hat to find the good users and One Hat to find the negative users and promote the good and reduce the negative harms. And the product was called Community SIP. That product was really, really kind of neat. I came up with a vision. The vision was phase one, work with the best companies in the world with the hardest problems. Because whenever you create a company, you have to deal with a real issue. Don't just make it up inside your head. Find an early adopter and work on the real thing, and then pivot until you've nailed it. And so we got to work with Animal Jam and Roblox and Clash of Clans with Supercell, Marvel Contest of Champions with Kabam. We worked with Blizzard. We worked with Minecraft. We worked with Xbox. We worked with some of the biggest and largest companies with some of the hardest problems there was. And we're now doing over 100 billion chat messages a month, which is about 7 times the size of Twitter. That's how much volume is just pouring through the system. We're preventing people from, of course, swearing, but also from racism and hate and sexual abuse and people about to commit suicide. We can provide help to them. It's an incredible platform that we're able to build. And it attracted the interest of Microsoft because remember, we're working with Minecraft and Xbox and a bunch of stuff, which I wasn't allowed to say until more recently. And then last fall, they went and bought the company because that goes to phase 2. So phase 1, work with the best companies in the world with the hardest problems and solve their problem. Phase 2, bring it to the rest of the world. To bring it to the rest of the world, they got to find a cloud-based provider. So someone like a Microsoft, Google, or Amazon were like the 3 that I shortlisted. And so that every single person that uploads content to the internet, you can then label it before it goes on the cloud, label it for harms and those kinds of things. So the goals then was sell the company to Microsoft with 3 objectives. 1, there was a certain financial goal that I wanted to hit. 2, I want to keep the team in Kelowna, which is my city that I work in, so I can keep the innovation going in my local area, build my local tech sector. 3rd, I want to continue the mission. The mission's really, really important. This isn't just about making money. Got to keep the mission going. You know what? We ended up doing all 3 of those goals within about 10%. And I wanted to do it all within 8 years. And it ended up being 9 years. But it feels good to be able to do that. What an honor that God gave us the ability to do it. Now, I've shared all this. And it sounds like it's all easy. But what you're seeing is the tip of the iceberg. And what below that is I had 4 kids during the time that I'm saying all this. I watched a video one time of when I was younger. I watched a video of my daughter in diapers kind of crawling around. And I heard this thump, 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 thump in the background of the video. I'm like, what does that sound? And I realized that's me. I wasn't there when she's learning to crawl and those other kinds of things that she was doing in the video. I was outside the house working on a massive renovation. Why did I take on a massive renovation project for the whole house and do it myself? And I realized that I need to be present for my family. And I can't say I've always been successful. One of the secrets of being present, because you're still going to have to work crazy hours, is when you're there, be fully there. Turn off your phone, put it away. Just focus on the child. Focus on your wife or your spouse. Focus on them. I remember going to the hospital twice. First time I thought I was having a heart attack. It turns out it was just stress. I was working so hard. I was pushing myself so hard. It meant so much to me. I was driving myself to almost have a heart attack. The second time my face had gone numb. I started getting all dizzy, getting kind of confused. Took myself to the hospital. I got in trouble later. I shouldn't have driven myself to the hospital. I got there and they said that, no, it's not a stroke. Took a while to figure that out. It's not a stroke. What you're having is actually migraines. Very interesting form of migraines. I ended up having migraines for 6 weeks straight, partly just because I was under so much stress. You push yourself so hard and you got to take care of yourself. If you could do anything else, do it. But to tell you the truth, if you're an entrepreneur, you can't do anything else because everything within your heart just begs to be that person who looks into nothing and creates out of nothing something that was never there before, because that is your essence of who you are. If you can't do anything else, then you got to do it. So there's more going on underneath the tip of that iceberg. So let me share 4 things. I'm going to wrap this up. 4 things I think will be super, super helpful. Number 1, have a mission. And have a reason why you're doing it, because you're going to need something to hold on to it. And don't just do it for money. Number 2, know that God has called you to it. This could be your full-time ministry. Your mission could be the very thing that God has called you to create. You're meeting a need that never has been met before. Number 3, focus. You are climbing a mountain. Don't climb 2 at the same time. You can't do it. You can't renovate your house while doing this other project and trying to be a father at the same time. Get focused. Every time you say yes to something, you're actually saying no to something else, is a saying that's been said. And 4, brace yourself for the long haul. Your goal was to create this company so you can have financial freedom to spend time with your kids and your family and enjoy the things that life has to provide. What's the point of getting there if your kids don't want to spend time with you anymore? Because you ignored them for so long. Take care of your family. Take care of your spiritual life. Take care of your health. Thank you so much.